So welcome everyone. Pleased to meet all of you. My name is Joe Biggio. I'm co-founder and EVP here at Inoria. Welcome to the webinar of Inoria and Bandwidth, where we'll be talking about maximizing your cloud migration, strengthening your contact center, resilience, and cutting costs. So we're just going to give it about a minute just to let everyone log in properly and get familiar with the program. Great. See some folks are logging in. Okay, why don't we get started? All right, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining today in the world. We really appreciate your time and make this insightful for you today. So once again, my name is Joe Biggio. I'm co-founder and EVP at Inoria. I'd like to welcome you to the Inoria Bandwidth webinar, where we're looking at maximizing your cloud migration. And we'll be talking specifically about strengthening your contact center, resilience, and cutting costs. I'll start off with the introductions. So like I said, I'm co-founder and EVP at Inoria. I'll be introducing Inoria a little bit later on in the presentation. I'll turn it over to Tim Bushell to introduce himself.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tim Bushell. I am a senior solutions architect and also team lead for the group of architects here at Inoria. I've been working with Inoria since 2019, and prior to that, was formerly a IT director for a contact center environment in my local area.
Thank you, Tim. Sammy?
Good afternoon, all. Sam Holmesy. I am the Director of Resell Channels over here at Bandwidth. Excited to be talking with you all today and here with our great partners at Inoria. So part of my roles and responsibilities is the partnerships that we bring to market to help augment the services in which we deliver worldwide.
Thank you, Sam.
And hey, I'm Terry Stocking from Bandwidth. I've got the contact center and AI specialist solutions role, really a solution engineering role, and I'm a technical resource around designing solutions and helping to answer any technical questions.
Great. Thank you, Terry. So go through today's agenda. We'll start off with a little introduction, tell you a little bit more about Inoria, so an overview over there, and same thing with Bandwidth. And then we'll talk to you specifically about the Bandwidth and Genesis integration and complete with a real-world success story, Inoria and Bandwidth in action. And then we'll have some time for some Q&A. I do want to invite you to feel free to post any questions that you have. On the bottom right of your screen, you should see a little icon, questions. So that could be any questions that you want to ask throughout the webinar. Feel free to post those. We will be taking a look at them at the end of the webinar. If we do happen to run out of time, don't worry about it. We'll make sure to answer all the questions and we'll send them to you by email to anybody that's registered to today's event. So, and then you'll also notice, which actually we will do one right now. We're going to move right into a poll. So you have also a polling icon on the bottom right of your screen. So that's where you can submit your responses. So the first poll for today's webinar is: where are you in your cloud migration journey with regards to UCaaS and CCaaS? In case you don't know what UCaaS and CCaaS stands for, it's Unified Communication Solutions or Contact Centers as a Service. So A, fully in the cloud, B, hybrid, or C, on-prem. So I'll pause for 30 seconds, allow you to put in your answers. So I'm not seeing any responses just yet. Just to remind everybody, it's on the polls icon on the bottom right. If you can just submit your answers by selecting one of the three choices you see on your screen or in the poll window. Okay, good. Perfect. So thank you. So we have a majority, 71% of respondents are confirming hybrid of on-prem and in the cloud, and 29% fully in the cloud. So I'll invite Tim Bushell to comment on that just a little bit in terms of what we're seeing with our clients and overall in the market space.
Yeah, actually, the results don't surprise me because as what we're seeing with the movement of contact center as a service platforms, it is very common in the industry to have a unified communications platform that is connected to that and delivering a collaborative experience between the two. I'm seeing a lot of trend lately where unified communications platforms, back with the pandemic times, some of those were moving off to cloud, but there is still quite a large concentration of those that are on premise.
Super. Thank you, Tim. So I'll pass it over here in terms of company highlights. Sorry about that. So company highlights, just to give you an overview about Inoria. So I'm joining you today from Inoria's headquarters in beautiful Montreal, Quebec, Canada. So that's our head office where we have more than 60 employees that are part of the Inoria team. We are spread out a little bit throughout Canada and also in the United States. We support more than 25,000 agents across North America, which represents roughly more than 1 million interactions per day. A customer base of more than 150 clients. We've had a growth rate of about 30% year over year. Company was founded in 2008. And some of you may have seen that Inoria is currently the Partner of the Year, North America, Canada, for Genesys. So a very prestigious award that doesn't only come with revenue achievement, but comes with a nice track record of successful implementations and obviously certifications and skill sets. In terms of partnerships, Inoria is a flagship partner with Genesys, so has always been leading with Genesys in terms of contact center implementations. Obviously, as well, from a telecom provider perspective, which we'll be talking a lot about today, partnering with Bandwidth, so fantastic relationship and partnership. I'll also highlight some other key partnerships that make up the ecosystem of our partners at Inoria. So eMite, a dashboard and analytics provider, Core.ai, a fantastic conversational AI provider, Alvaria, primarily contact center and workforce management. Inoria has developed a long-term partnership in terms of workforce management expertise for your contact center. Parloa, a leader again in the conversational AI space. TalkDesk as well in the contact center space. Distributel from a telecommunications provider, a little more local in Canada. And then Coveo, a new partner that has joined the ecosystem in terms of AI search capabilities for your contact center. In terms of key partnerships from a professional services standpoint, the primary of our services are led always by Inoria, but from time to time we do partner with some great giants such as Genesys, Rogers, and IBM to deliver services within our customers. I want to highlight a few customer logos here just to show you a little bit of what we've been doing in terms of success stories over the last 14 years. Insurance and finance has been one of our biggest sectors, definitely leading sector for us. So highlighting some customers there. As you can see, clients across Canada and the US. In the healthcare sector, also a very big and growing sector for Inoria. Government, so municipalities, cities, utilities has also been a very big growing sector over the last few years. So some fantastic customers, again, Canada, US, and many, many other industries such as business process outsourcers, retail, education, and many other fantastic industries that we are a part of. In terms of our mission statement, just to talk about that just for a second, our goal out there is really to enable organizations to create powerful and meaningful interactions. So our objective at the end of the day, these are your clients, your customers that you're looking after. But at the end of the day, we want to enable your team members, your organization to really create those more powerful and meaningful interactions. So it's all about CX and customer experience at the end of the day. In terms of values, I want to highlight our 5 main values. So passion, expertise, community, trust, and respect and agility. And I just want to highlight the passion and expertise because this is what drives Inoria to constantly look for breaking technology, new trends in the marketplace, especially with what we see that's going on now in terms of AI solutions, really taking a leap in our industry from a contact center perspective. And as just before I pass it off to the amazing Bandwidth team, I just want to highlight some of the proof is in the pudding, as we say, in terms of what's going on. So BYOC, bring your own carrier. Overall, more than 1 out of 2 enterprises prefer or require a BYOC integration from their software providers. So if you're not working with a software provider that brings you BYOC, I think that's something super important to think about. That's the overall market space. If we zoom in on the contact center or CX leaders, only 4.7% of CX leaders are uninterested in a BYOC solution. So you can see whether it's enterprise-wide, contact center specific, BYOC is a key component and needs to be part of the requirements. If you look at the success that BYOC brings to companies, you can see that in the middle of the chart here, revenue, customer ratings, agent productivity, and operational costs. In terms of savings, our colleague here, Sam, will tell you a lot more about that, but you'll see savings anywhere sometimes between as low as maybe 15% and then upwards into the 50s and 60% in terms of savings. And just overall, having a BYOC solution in place multiplies by 3x CCaaS investments. So it's kind of a stepping stone for ease of transition as you're thinking of migrating from perhaps premise to the cloud, or you're still in that hybrid cloud solution that we saw before. So that's it on my part. I'll turn it over to Sam to talk to you a little bit more about Bandwidth and the overall solution between Genesys and Bandwidth. Thank you.
Excellent, Joe. Thank you. Yeah, and again, just to reiterate, the partnership with Inoria has been nothing short of amazing, and here to kind of talk to you about an exciting offer that we have here at Bandwidth and kind of how we approach the marketplace to enable that BYOC that Joe was just mentioning. So before we do so, in keeping with the theme of polls, I'm going to ask you guys to go to the bottom right again and go ahead and post a poll that is specific to how many different unified communications and or contact center platforms are you using today, right? A, 1 to 2, B, 3 to 4, and C, 4 or above. And again, this is spanning both unified communications as well as contact center. We'll give it 30 seconds or so here. Excellent. I'm starting to see some polls come in. We'll just give it a few more seconds before we'll ask for Terry to jump in and give some commentary as it pertains to some of the results. So pretty even keel thus far. I think we have seen most of the results, and it's actually a tie. So 38% 1 to 2, 38% 3 to 4, and 2 that are 4 plus. Terry, does that is that in line with what you see in the marketplace? Terry might be muted.
Yep.
Yes, this goes right along with what I've seen in the marketplace. Absolutely. So typically you do see somewhere, sometimes it is 1 to 2, a lot of times it is 3 to 4. And then there are those extreme cases with 4 or more systems. And that's to be, I think, expected, and it kind of matches what we're doing. And really, I think part of the solution that we've got here allows you to seamlessly go between and switch between those systems and have one provider from a telephony and connectivity perspective. So you can easily kind of move as you need to between those different systems and have one kind of source of truth. So that's this matches what I've seen.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback off of that, right? I think this really goes hand in hand with the previous poll question, right? When you think about, I think it was 75% of the audience had indicated, there's some sort of hybrid, right, mode in terms of on-prem or in the cloud. So with that comes multiple different technologies that you have to worry about, integrations and manage. So nothing really jumps out at us there. Just reaffirms kind of what we see in the marketplace. So who is Bandwidth? Bandwidth is proud. We're here proud to say that we're actually powering 100% of the Gartner UCaaS and CCaaS providers. So when you think about a Microsoft Teams, a Genesys, a Zoom, 8x8, so on and so forth, we are powering one element, one shape or form, whether it be voice messaging or emergency services, for 12 out of 12 UCaaS providers in the upper right-hand quadrant, and 9 out of 9 from a CCaaS perspective. So again, we're going to transition here into Maestro, but to Terry's point earlier, as you're looking at those, 3 to 4 different platforms that you're evaluating either today, 6 months from now, 2 years from now, the commitment as it pertains to bandwidth and the integrations that we have and where we power them will remain to give you that flexibility as it pertains to what software layer you put on top, but we can be that kind of single unified platform powering all of your telecommunications need across both UCaaS and CCaaS. So again, just a little bit more of who we are. When you look at the left-hand side of the screen in the slide, right, these are other kind of network operators, if you will, that we see in the marketplace. Maybe incumbents for some of you guys on the line here today. However, a couple of unique differentiators in our opinion is, we span both, right? So again, competing against the left in the traditional telecom space, but where we really kind of start disrupting the market is twofold. One, being kind of built in the cloud enables us to, grant the end users that kind of control, if you will, from a software layer perspective, right? We'll talk a little bit about the dashboards and the app within Bandwidth as pertains to ease of management. But, the folks on the right who have that, CPaaS messaging kind of play, they're not owner operated, right? Meaning they are really considered aggregators and they're renting their network, right? So we can kind of span both. And then, the third piece of the pie here is understanding the regulatory that goes, hand in hand with that, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about coverage, but 65 plus countries that we're supporting and providing, some element of voice services for. There's a lot of different regulatory requirements as you span, the globe. So kind of being that right hand, expertise in that, being, kind of your advisor in that space is critical as we kind of tie all three elements of this together. And when we think about kind of product sets, right? Okay, what does Bandwidth do as it pertains to kind of creating and composing communications with ultimate simplicity? It's really kind of built all around Maestro, right? So Maestro, you guys may have or may not have recognized, but we won Best of Enterprise Connect in 2023, right? So very proud of that award. And really, when you think about it, it's no one thing in particular. It's really a compilation of all the things that you see up on the screen. So kind of going, bottom up, if you will, from a voice perspective, as I mentioned on the previous slide, owner-operated network, right, built from the ground up, 65 plus countries that we're providing service in, which covers about 93% of the global GDP. And we're providing numbers around the globe, right, mobile, national, toll-free numbers, what have you. We're actually a national operator in 31 of those countries. And then when we get into some of the differentiators, specifically around toll-free, being able to provide, 5x redundancy with one provider, right? That's unmatched in the industry. Moving on to messaging, right? As you guys all can imagine, customers are demanding, more, right? It's an omni-channel world where we need to kind of connect where and when it makes sense. So messaging coverage for us is pretty robust here in this space as well. So when you think about alphanumeric messaging, we got coverage in about 120 countries. And the last piece here is really around emergency services. So when you think about hybrid work and what needs to happen, right, to enable that, a big piece of this as it pertains to hybrid work is compliance and protecting your employees, right? So, Ray Baum's Act and Kerry's Law, are two things that kind of come up in every one of these conversations as it pertains to your migration to UCaaS and CCaaS. So really kind of being able to be that singular provider to provide emergency services in 38 plus countries is key to us. Now kind of going, across the bottom, right? So UCaaS and CCaaS, we have kind of, as I highlighted in the opening, the most prepackaged integrations of any other carrier out there, right? And again, this is really to meet you where you are, right? This is today where you're migrating to, as well as the ability to, be forward thinking in 6 months, 12 months from now, where you need to be. Having kind of a conversational AI, integration with pre-built integrations to simplify the process for adding new technology, right? AI is obviously hot and at the forefront of, Inoria's practice, but being able to leverage, some of that, conversational AI bridge to be able to plug and play if and when needed. And then from a trust perspective, right, teaming up with best of breed in this space to be able to kind of catch fraudsters before calling into the contact center, doing things like enabling, and ensuring legitimate enterprises when they call their customers that, they're not being flagged as spam likely, right? Something that we see quite often. So really, when you think about kind of, again, bandwidth and what we bring to market, right? Think voice, think messaging, think E911, and many different integrations as it pertains to add-ons that you can kind of easily, where we can meet you in your journey as it pertains to that migration to the cloud. So proactive telecom, kind of transitioning a little bit into some of what we find as proactive, a huge value differentiator is, proud to sit here and say, and again, knocking on wood here, but, from a 2024 actuals, while our targets are, 99.995, we're actually seeing 100% uptime, right? So I mentioned it earlier in terms of 5x redundancy, but that is, Terry's going to get into that, but these are some of the results of what that, means for you as a customer, right? So when you think about toll free and, all the costs associated with being down in the space, really, really proud to say that, while we're able to keep uptime up, it's because we're proactive, right? We're monitoring things 24/7 by 365. We had the ability to understand, what traffic should look like in specific markets and proactively route around them to be able to give you the redundancy and resiliency that you expect out of a provider. And then, just transitioning to software led, right? A big part of us, and we call it the Bandwidth app, is really kind of one hub, if you will, for managing what I mentioned in terms of Maestro, voice messaging, and emergency services. So think ease of managing configurations, think provisioning at the speed of now, right? Being able to browse live inventory, port existing numbers, and really kind of be at the forefront of those migrations and adjusting the numbers by a singular number or entire inventory of numbers as you're going down your cloud journey. And then, of course, wrapped around insights with in-depth reporting around all of the analytics that you would expect out of voice messaging and E911 items. So that said, I'd like to pass it over to Terry and talk a little bit deeper on our Bandwidth and Genesis integrations.
Thanks, Sam. I will, I'll be covering in a little more detail the Genesis integrations we've got with Bandwidth. But before we do that, I think we've got another poll here. So give folks a few minutes to kind of tell us what your current focus area is for you. And we've got a list down here. Okay. So we got them coming in here. it looks like we got most of this stuff in. So it looks like redundancy and resiliency, automation in the contact center, and lowering costs seem to be the big focuses. I'll let Tim kind of give some comment on these.
Yeah, that's actually right in line with how we see engaging with a lot of our clients in the marketplace right now as well. It's not overly surprising from my perspective. I think a lot of this will depend where you are in some of your journeys, whether that's contact center in the cloud or uh, what you're doing with your unified communications platforms. The What I'm seeing is the longer the duration that customers are operating in the cloud platforms, the more they're looking to basically lower costs. And some ways that they're achieving that is through automation in the contact center, whether that be, maybe manual labor for some of the tasks being done and tapping into some of the AI suites potentially to deliver some of that automation, or yeah, just kind of rolling through and just saying, in the agile approach of moving to contact center platforms, sometimes you start out with what we would call a minimum viable product or mostly viable product, and then you keep doing refinement loops with it. In the lowering cost category, as the business starts to get accustomed to the cloud solution, they're starting to see where the cost of operations, sometimes like your maintenance and your upgrades and stuff, tend to be just baked into that platform overall. And sometimes it's just how are we fine tuning it and aligning the platform overall. The redundancy and resiliency, I believe that's really going to depend on which industries you are and what is the desired state for operating in your business. We do see some customers where they are looking to have like a warm standby contact center ready in the cloud for a bad day event.
Oh, thank you, Tim. I will be covering off a couple of these as we move through the integration with Genesys. So we move into that next. So Bandwidth has an integration, a direct integration with Genesys Cloud CX, and we've had it for quite some time. We've actually been a partner with Genesys since 2015. But this integration we have is a direct integration cloud to cloud. So it's Bandwidth SBCs to Genesys SBCs and proxies directly. And so there's no need for a customer to have an SBC, so no need for extra hardware equipment or management of that. This makes a couple of big advantages for this. One is it allows for obviously a lower cost solution. And the second thing is it's much more agile. Because we've already got these pre-built pipes, we can basically spin customers up very, very quickly, meaning that we can turn around, the turn up times get reduced, and our flexibility in rerouting things, and I'm going to talk about a little bit more about that in a minute, but rerouting things is enhanced because we've got all these pre-built integrations and connections that we can use. Flipping over to the toll-free side of the fence, Bandwidth owns its own toll-free network. We actually have what we call 5x carrier redundancy, meaning if there's a problem in our network or somebody else's network that we're using, we can actually move those calls around and avoid those issues. And that's seamless within our solution. So it gives you extra redundancy on top of what we already provide as a very redundant solution. Also, we are the second largest REST-org in the nation, meaning we have a lot of traffic on our network. And we do provide additional redundancy if you need it. We call it Call Assure, which has the ability in that 5x redundancy to route around the Bandwidth network if needed and go over the top and come to customers directly, thus giving the kind of last ditch alternate path when there's a catastrophic event to still have your traffic, your toll-free traffic delivered to you. So that's unique in the industry and a real big advantage that a lot of our, especially contact center customers are taking advantage of. A couple other things, we are a global provider, and this solution is in APAC, in Europe, and also in North America. So we actually connect up. It doesn't matter where your org is. We can have calls come in from any part of our network globally and get sent to the Genesis CX organization, no matter where it's located. We also have the ability to do something similar like that with Teams. We have a pre-built integration to Teams as well. And we are an Genesis App Foundry member, where you can go into their App Foundry and find a little bit more information on the Bandwidth integration. And the last part of this slide I want to mention is we take advantage of global media fabric from Genesis. And this allows us to keep, especially in a global environment, calls localized. So calls that originate in Europe that might have an org in the US or an instance in the US of Genesis, and the agent is in Europe, we can keep the media of the call in Europe. So that's a huge advantage as far as reducing latency and keeping higher call quality. So this is again a history of where we've been with Genesis for quite some time, and a very robust integration. Just to kind of talk about a little bit more on this, we have a redundancy built into this platform. I kind of mentioned it a little before on our pre-built integration. But what we actually do is we have, from our SBCs, we actually have many connections to the Genesis environment. So if there's any kind of problems, we can reroute around any kind of issues. And because this is all software managed, it's very quick to reroute the calls and the traffic, and you wouldn't even know that anything happened. It's kind of all back behind the scenes. This allows us to get our reliability, upwards of actually we've hit for the last couple of years 100% uptime. I'm knocking on wood, but our target is always 99.999, so 5 nines. So we've been actually exceeding that the last few years here. And we have done many migrations. So we figured out how to get from on-prem to cloud, and depending upon what the requirements are, we have a couple different paths to do that. But we are experts in that, and especially with our partner Inoria here, they help kind of put the glue together to make that all happen seamlessly. There are a couple other pieces down here, and one that I'd like to call out is we have integrations at an API level. So it's you can automate a lot of the configuration and kind of like if you want to download billing records, those are all things that can be automated through our APIs. And we are constantly looking at new functionality as we move forward and new integrations as we move forward. So we consider ourselves to be very forward-looking when it comes to the various different paths we're taking towards what's next. This is a little deeper dive. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but the idea here, as you'll see, as you can go into Bandwidth's network, again, we've got all this redundancy built into our backbone. And then we interconnect to Genesis through these pre-built integrations and paths. And it's easy for us to reroute traffic if there's any kind of problems. We also do this through a multi-tenanted interface, meaning that these pipes are big pipes and it can be used by multiple customers. Thus, it scales very well, gives you better redundancy and resiliency, also allows us to manage these large scale pipes at volume, meaning that if there's any kind of problems with all the various different things that are going on, we recognize them right away. We consider them network to network interfaces as opposed to a network to user interface. So we treat them differently. We treat them almost Genesis as another carrier, and we manage it that way. So what's important to you is that you will have better uptime and resiliency and quicker resolution to your issues using this type of architecture. And that's all baked into these integrations that we have with Genesis, between Bandwidth and Genesis. And lastly, I'm going to hand this over to Sammy to run through a little bit of the why go with Bandwidth here.
Yeah, and again, I think we've touched on a lot of this, but just to kind of summarize, right? When you think about bandwidth and our approach to BYOC, number one, as Joe highlighted in his slide, right? 58% of customers or enterprises are basically demanding, right, BYOC in comparison to either calling plans, which obviously for what we think are these reasons the most, right? Direct to carrier, which means the highest quality routes with the lowest possible costs, right? So Joe mentioned on average about 15 to 20% savings we're seeing in enterprise customers, but that certainly can span up to 40, 50, and sometimes even 60%. So there's a huge advantage as it pertains to that direct to carrier relationship. From an E911 perspective, again, there's a lot of requirements that are new, right, and requirements that may vary depending on state, country, etc. So to be able to provide that E911 services in 38 countries and consolidate vendors, and most importantly, right, mitigate risk for litigation and protecting your employees, to be able to solve for Ray Baum's Act and Kerry's Law. Third, reliability and redundancy. So we talked a lot about this, right? Throughout these last 30 or so minutes. But 100% uptime from a toll-free, inbound perspective is extremely a stat to be proud of. But so proactive telecom as a whole, and providing that 5x redundancy is critical in this day and age, right? As it pertains to providing your ultimate customer experience, and then relationships, right? So number one, being able to provide, across messaging, emergency services, and voice, consolidating the number of vendors that you need to deal with, coupled with that world-class support that we've kind of highlighted a couple times, with coverage, right, in 93% of the global, GDP in over 65 countries. So while there are many, advantages, I think that those kind of capture some of the highlights that we see most enterprise customers kind of gravitating towards. And to that point, I think we're going to now highlight a customer win.
Thank you, Sam. So back, Joe Bijou here and Tim Bushell. So we'll go over this success story. So the customer is a insurance provider, healthcare agency provider based in Massachusetts, with over 11,000 providers. Was a customer of ours for well over 5 years. Was on a legacy premise-based system, Genesis Pure Connect environment, and migrated over to Genesis Cloud. Successful migration, just under 200 agents and a handful of business users, admin users. And essentially, we're looking for a telecom provider to help them support their migration in the cloud, and maintain their 2 Genesis environments, so their production, their development organization. So I will call upon Tim just to comment a little bit about the solution and just talk a little bit more about the win.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Joe. Yeah, for this engagement, the Inoria team was working directly with the customer team, and through the journey and through our discovery phase, we understood that as they were looking to split from the shared Pure Connect environment to 2 separate Genesis Cloud instances to give better isolation of information, through this process, that the discussions came up and shared, hey, we're going to need some telecom carrier because we won't be sharing the same carrier as we were in the nature before. So Inoria worked with them to share understanding, start to set some expectations. With the Genesis Cloud solution, there are multiple options around how do you bring your carrier or get telephony connected to it. We explored some of the options, and when we worked with the customer team to listen to their requirements and the desires overall, the bring your own carrier cloud solution started to come to the forefront of what is the best path and strategy for this. When we worked with the team to say, is there a preferred carrier, or sometimes we would call that an incumbent that they are working with for this solution, the options were open, and that's when we started to explore the option overall with our solid partner here, Bandwidth. For this, as we went through the solution overall, Bandwidth came in and We got the bring your own carrier in the cloud edition set up, so no additional hardware required for that customer team to get their telecom connectivity into the environment, and able to support the American requirements for as the nature of that. As the team has shared, the RABOMS and Carries Act are strong considerations in this type of solution, given the geography of our customer. As we move through it all, one of the key things for this customer team is that now that we're operating the solution, they've been able to look at some of their telecom expenses, and we're seeing a 58% reduction in cost in that area as well. And we've increased, as this slide is pointing out, we've increased their postures around the RABOMS and RABOMS Act and Carries Law.
And just to add one more thing as far as the solution goes and the win with this customer, Tim, is we started off also with a proof of concept. So we did that in a tested environment, and then once the client saw the dashboard and then the ability to self-serve, as the team here at Bandwidth point out, it almost became a no-brainer to move forward. So just in addition to the savings you alluded to there, you pointed out, I should say, just the self-serve capabilities of the platform just made their lives that much easier. So thank you for that.
Very important. Yeah.
All right, so we're at the long anticipated moment of some Q&A. So again, I will invite everybody that's joined us today to use your icon, the questions icon on the bottom right of your screen. To post any questions you might have. I do see that we have some questions, so thank you for that to the audience. I'll start off with the first question that's being asked. Again, just a reminder that we will be publishing the answers to the questions, so feel free, if we run short of time here, we'll get that to everybody that's registered for this webinar. Or of course, you can always get in touch with us afterwards. So the first question that I see here is, what is the process for transitioning from Genesis Cloud Voice or any other carrier to Bandwidth? I'll call upon Tim, if that's okay for that question.
Yeah, sure. So the process overall is not very complex, or at least it does not appear complex from our perspective. We've done this multiple times before. So a lot of what will occur is through the journey, we will identify if we need to move telephone numbers between the two networks of what is the incumbent or existing carrier and to the Bandwidth network. As the Bandwidth team mentioned before, they provide REST-borg services, and it's some paperwork and a carrier process that we move to move the number between the networks. At a high level, we want to get the bring your own carrier cloud connectivity to the environment, set it up, do some testing, make sure that we've got the connections in place and that we're handling. Usually we would do this with some testing telephone numbers. And then once we have that proved out and it's ready to go, then we look at scheduling the REST-borg process, where we start to transfer the phone numbers into the new SIP trunks or that carrier connectivity. I think it looks like the mute machine's got you.
Yep. Yeah, I'm still on mute. So again, moving on to the next question over here. So are we required to provide SBCs? So SBCs are session border controls for the Bandwidth solution. So calling upon Terry.
Yeah, so SBCs are not required. We have a direct integration with Genesis and Bandwidth, and that means that you don't have to have that SBC, because we're directly going from the Bandwidth network to the Genesis network, and it's not coming to a premise or a virtual SBC. So you do not need an SBC for this solution.
Thank you for pointing that out. That's a great consideration, considering the costs of maintaining additional hardware or SBCs in customer environments. Great. I see another question over here. Thank you. So, how is bandwidth different from any other telecom provider? Great question, Sammy. If you don't mind, call upon you for that one.
Yeah, great question. So, I think in short, right, it's everything we've just been discussing, right? When you think about bandwidth and our posture of growing up in the cloud and having the ability to straddle both, being an owner-operated network as well as a CPaaS provider, I think naturally provides a level of simplicity, right, across multiple routes to market. Couple that with the regulatory expertise that we have in all the countries in which we serve. I think we have a very strong product as it pertains to voice and our toll free with proved by that 100% uptime that we kind of shared a couple times. And then the app, right, or bandwidth dashboard is extremely powerful to kind of give you all of that management tooling, reporting, insights, and visibility real time. Is probably another key factor. And then I think last and probably not talked about enough, to be honest with you, is really our world-class customer support, right? So I know I mentioned it, but when you think about the track record of winning numerous awards as it pertains to how it is that we approach the marketplace in this space, I think is uniquely different. Being able to answer the phone, 24/7 by 365, and just again, kind of a different experience than you're used to in this space, and proud of that.
Okay, thank you, Sammy, for that. Really appreciate it. So that concludes today's webinar. We're short of time, but I do want to thank everybody for joining today. And again, as I said before, we will be publishing this content on our website and different channels, both the website of Inoria and Bandwidth as well. I do want to thank one of our audience members, current customer. I'll just share the testimonial here from a client that has deployed the solution. Bandwidth has a great team, great support, ease of use, and amazing cost savings. So thank you for that. And I do see another comment there. Let me just read that over. Super. It's a question. Okay, so one of the most critical, I'm not sure, I think everyone can see it because it's in the chat. So one of the most critical issues when setting up automation and lowering costs across is being able to utilize analytics across different systems seamlessly. What type of analytics does Bandwidth provide? So Terry, would you like to take that one?
Sure, I can take that one on. So from an analytics perspective, we can look at basically all of the calls and give statistics on concurrent calls, details of what's happening with the calls, including things like what errors might be happening. And you have kind of near real-time data that you can react to and help modify either your flows or what you're doing from a routing perspective with this additional information that you gather.
Great. So thank you for that question. So once again, thank you everybody for joining today's webinar. We really hope it was insightful, and we will be sending this out. And I wish everybody a good afternoon, good evening, or good morning. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.
Take care. Thank you.